Hello everyone, this is Zia here. I am a .NET developer, software engineer, computer programmer, enterprise architect sometimes. Uh, I've been working for Microsoft for almost 2 years now in the role of a PFE. I get reached out by my friends, colleagues at work, sometimes customers, and then they all request to me saying that, Zia, how do you write programs? Uh, I've tried to answer this question on multiple capacity on several occasions, but then I don't think I have done justice to it. Uh, so then I thought that let me do this thing. Let me start doing some live programming for the people who have been requesting this for such a long time. Um, for that thing, I required a problem statement, and then I was not able to generate a difficult enough problem statement myself, and then. I ran into a program that was an MVC application of Entity Framework. It is available on the Microsoft documentation. All right, so this is the link. Um, what I thought is that let me go ahead and download this code, and then once I have the code available, I'm going to start working on the project live in front of some of my audience, some of my friends, and then I'm going to upload. And then every thought that comes along as I am working on the application, I'm going to start working on it. Right. So with that intention, I have already downloaded and extracted part of the application uh, here. So let me go ahead quickly extract this file for you, and then we will get started with my thought process. So let's grab these two files. So historically, I have been putting all of my code into C drive code folder. Right. I'm going to come here. I'm going to dump all these files. And so let me try one more time. All right. So now that I have this, now that my Visual Studio is running as an administrator, I'm not sure if it is running as an administrator. So let me go ahead and ensure that I am an administrator, because most of the work that I do in some capacity requires me to execute the code as an administrator. All right. I don't want to open a folder. I want to open a project solution. It is inside C drive, code, Contoso, and Contoso University Solution. I know there's only one project, so I'm going to hit OK directly. Alright, so the project has loaded fine in the memory. Let's see what we have in the web.config. I am assuming that it will require SQL Server running on my machine, which I do not have. So let me go ahead and quickly download Alright, so this has downloaded real quick. Let me go ahead start the installation of this, and I'm going to see you and we're going to jump right back into the code. Alright, so let's do installation of a new SQL Server standalone. Alright, I accept. I don't wish to participate at the moment. This looks fine. Just 2 more tasks to complete. Let me also try to get the Management Studio. And while the last step happens, I think I won't need this window anymore. I have a database, I want SQL connectivity. I'm going to select all the default installation rules. So this is SQL Express, which is fine. I'm going to give it so that was the instance configuration. The server configuration also looks okay. I'm going to accept everything default. The database engine configuration, I'm fine with the local administrator becoming the database administrator as well. The error reporting, I don't wish to participate at the moment. Installation configuration rules, just came through, and that is the installation progress. So now that this installation has started, I'm going to go focus on alright, so there is only one installation at a time. I'm going to cancel off this one. Alright, let me see if my recording is working fine. Alright, so this is OBS Studio. Looks like everything is working fine. I'm going to close out of this one. I'm going to go to full screen in my Visual Studio one more time. Alright, so I am pretty sure that it'll require me to modify this particular connection string, and then I might as well have to ensure that the initial catalog Contoso University 2 is also present somewhere inside my database. Alright, so we are going to come back to this, and for now let me just close out of this one and then start focusing on the folder structure one more time. My general idea is that every time I get a solution at hand, I would try to execute the solution myself. I know this one will not execute because it has a database dependency, but then let me still hit the IIS Express play button. The build output. Let me see what options we have here. The build order, resemblance, and diagnostics. Alright, so nothing fancy for now. Alright, so it's building DLL for the only project inside the solution, and looks like it completed successfully. I'm going to close out of all the extra tabs that we have here, and then zoom to full screen. No thanks. Alright, so it looks like the website launches fair enough. This is the home page of the Contoso University, the default MVC application page that you see when you create it from the initial template. Let me go to the home, but this is the home page. They both look the same. If you notice the URL in the lower left corner, the about page is a different URL. Let me hit about. I am expecting a database error at this point because we do not have the database created at the moment. I'm hoping to see some form of error. Excuse me. Are you sure you wish to exit? And I have get off my remote desktop. Let me connect again, and I'm going to accept the self-signed certificate, and my about page has still not loaded. Let's see what we have in the output window. Alright, so there is an exception. The exception says a network related error or instance specific error has occurred while establishing a connection to SQL Server, which is pretty obvious that I do not have a local DB here in the Visual Studio. So we will have to stop this and we'll have to wait for the installation to finish. Looks like this has completed successfully. I might have to go add-on feature. I'm pretty sure that there is no management studio on this computer, and then there is no SQL Server Configuration Manager. So there's a SQL Server Configuration Manager. There's no SQL Server Management Studio. We'll require that. I am assuming that if I change this to dot slash SQL Express and give this thing a spin, right? There's a possibility that it'll work. Can't read this page. Gonna close off. Alright, let's try the about page now. One more time. And let's keep an eye on the IIS Express logs here. Alright, so it looks like it is executing a lot of queries. I think it is the initial database that it is trying to populate, and then with this I am assuming that some form of Contoso migration have already been executed. Right? So let's go back to the browser window and let's see what we have here. So the enrollment student database is empty. I have executed this project in the past and I know that there's some database table that you get to see. So I'm going to hit refresh one more time and see if I'm seeing anything here. Let's go to the student page and see what we have. Nothing so far. Let me try to add a student. I'm going to be adding myself as a student here, and then select say 2002. That's when I started my graduation. I think it was June. Fairly close. I'm gonna hit the create button, and then this is our first entry here. Another thing that I know is that because the default database wasn't appearing, what we can do is we can stop this project and we can go to another window called the package manager console. Alright, so a lot of things are happening in this Visual Studio installation for the first time, and that's why you see from time to time it does fresh installation asking fresh question. Let me type console package manager console. Inside this window, if I type update database, I'm pretty sure that it is going to call about update DB. No, alright. So this is a point where I think it is fine for me to do a quick Google. Visual Studio Entity Framework, run seed. Alright, and if I scroll down, the command is update hyphen database. I was missing a hyphen here. I am going to go back to my remote machine, and then I'm going to type update hyphen database. I'm going to hit enter. We're pending explicit migration running seed method. With the seed method, I think the functions that are supposed to inject or insert data into the tables, they are going to kick in and they will insert all the data. Alright, so this is initial create, this is max name or length, complex data model, department SP and row version and inheritance and configuration. I am assuming that one of these is going to have a lot of student data. Let me just quickly browse through and then see if I get lucky. Complex data model. Nope, this is also a configuration of database. And nope. I am pretty sure that there, at some place. Yeah, there you go. There's a function called seed. This is inside the configuration class of migration, and then this is the student information that is already present in the system. All right. So with this, if I execute the code one more time and hit the pages that we were looking at earlier, we will definitely get to see some data. All right. If I go to the about page, I have multiple student enrollment, 2002, 2005, 2002. This is probably me, the record that I created some time back. And then this is the seed data that got generated because of the update-database package manager console command. Let's go to the student table, and then we have at least 3 students and 3 pages. I'm assuming that there are close to 9 students. So that's what we are seeing here. Let's go to courses. Inside courses, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 courses altogether: mathematics, engineering, English, mathematics, and economics. So there are multiple of these courses available as well. Then there are instructors. So there are 5 instructors that I see. And then inside departments, I see close to 5 departments. Now if you notice, all of these pages, they all come with at least the default functionality of create, list. I am pretty sure that it gives us an option of edit, detail, and delete. All right, so let's go ahead and delete the record that I created for myself. And then once I delete this, I think it is still working fine. Right, so I don't see my record, which is correct. Let's see, I saw an Alex on the first page. So I'm going to type Alex and I'm going to hit the search button. Right, so do you see how the search string has changed the URL and it is displaying one candidate? So I like features like this, where the query string is becoming parameter, and then it is through these parameters that the actions and the controllers are taking the entire effect and displaying the result for the URL in the browser page. The advantage of having such URL updates in the browser navigation bar, is that you can share these URL with your colleagues, your friends, and then they will be able to get to the same page. So let's start a new instance of this browser, of Google Chrome, because there is no history of this thing. And then let's see if it is returning only a single record, and which it is. Alright, so this is one good way of validating functionalities or generating URLs that can be shared across browser instances and versions. Right? I've been to the site earlier as well, and I know that at some places this is not happening. The URL in the browser does not get updated, and that creates a little bit of problem. So if I go to courses page and if I select say courses on engineering, and then if I hit the filter button, the filter is definitely working, I'm sure, but then it is not going to show anything in the browser window. Let's validate that, right? And then it is not. The problem again is that you cannot send this URL to anybody and expect that they're going to see a single record, right? So this is one feature that I did not like about the application. The rest of the application, rest of the page look pretty fine to me, right? With that, I'm going to end all of my browser sessions. I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to close out of Internet Explorer as well. Always close all tabs for me, I'm pretty sure, all the time. And then hit close all, and then I'm going to hit the stop button. Alright, so the database is set up, the code is open in Visual Studio, everything is working fine, everything builds. Most of the functionalities are working. I'm not happy about the way functionalities are implemented. They are not updating browser URLs, but that is still fine. I can live with that. So with this logical point where everything is working fine for us, I think this is a good place where we can dive into the code and dig further into the details and see how things are working. I'm going to close out of all of these documents, and I will collapse the window, and I notice that there is only one project. This does not particularly make me happy. Uh, you should not have one project depending on the type of functionalities you have. You should have um, definitely definitely more than one project for different concerns that are there inside your application. Um, as I expand the only project, which is Contoso University, which appears to be an MVC website project, I see different folder structure. All right. So the folder structure that we have in front of us today is pretty basic. Uh, the app data is a standard folder, app start is a standard folder, content gets added when you select a template that is not empty, but then this is fairly standard as well. Then there's a controller. This is standard to MVC controller model and view, which goes by the name model view controller pattern. There's a project template that was selected, and then we are definitely going to see those C folders as well. Uh, so controllers is the default folder one more time. Data access layer. This is not a standard folder. Let's see what we have inside this. So there are multiple configurations. This looks very specific to entity framework. There's a school context. Of course, we are dealing with a school website. So we are going to see this. There's a school initializer, school interceptor, transient errors. All right, so I'm expecting that this class is going to intercept all of the requests that are going inside or coming outside of entity framework, and it is going to do um, interception based error handling on the errors from entity framework. So we're going to look into those files. I'm going to collapse this folder for now. Fonts is a pretty standard folder. I'm assuming it comes through uh, the project template itself. I'm assuming that probably Bootstrap is also creating this particular folder. All right. We have logging. This is not a standard folder. Let's see what we have inside logging. There is an interface and there is an implementation of the interface. All right. Then we have migrations folder. So it looks like somebody played around with this particular folder structure. They added these things one at a time. In 2014, November 2nd, they started late at night and they kept working. So this was the first probably file that got added. This is the initial create. So they started on the 21st. They started at 9 in the evening and then they started working their way, and by 10:30, within 1.5 hours, they were done with this particular project, which is fairly impressive. Right, so I'm going to close out this particular file. I'm going to go to models, and then I see that there are at least uh, six or seven models that I see. One for course, one for department, enrollment, instructor, office assignment. I did not see any screen that talks specifically about office assignment. All right, so we will definitely have to look into this file. There's a person class, there's a student class. All right, I am assuming that this person class is going to have some relation to instructor and to student, and then this is also going to reflect inside the database schema that get created. All right, scripts is a fairly standard project folder. It has scripts associated to Bootstrap and jQuery. Um, because this is a fairly old project template, I am assuming that it still uses jQuery pretty heavy. Uh, with fancy UI frameworks and libraries coming in, people are using less and less of jQuery because the DOM manipulation that jQuery offers sometimes is slow. But then, so if we decide at some point that we are going to drift away, move away from the default UI, and we are going to go to a more appealing, more interactive UI, the ones that is offered by single page application, we might have to get rid of these files as well. But yeah, so I'm going to collapse this folder. I'm going to collapse the rest of the folders as well. Get myself some real estate on the screen and then see the view models folder. Alright, so there's a view models folder. We have one assigned course data, enrollment data, and instructor index data. I was hoping to see more of view models. one for student, one for courses, one for departments and things of that type. I'm not seeing any of that, so this is a red flag for me. But yeah, that's fine. We're gonna dig deeper into these files. So view models is gone, and then coming to views. Uh, Views have a one-to-one relationship to all the controllers that we have. So for course controller, we have a course folder with fairly standard uh, views: index, edit, create, update, delete, and update course credits. Alright, so this would be an interesting view to look at, because I'm assuming that there's going to be some business logic inside this one. So we're going to take a closer look at that one. I would guess, so department is fairly standard, 5 views. Home is very standard, it does not give any edit and delete functionality, that's why we are seeing less of those. Going forward to instructors. Instructor is fairly standard as well, no business logic for instructor. Then inside shared, we have layout and we have an error page. And then going to the student, we see again 5 very standard views. Alright, so I'm going to close out of, I'm going to collapse this. There are no more files that we have for browsing. There's a view start, there's a web.config, there's the two web.configs that I see. Now let me see what we have inside this one. So this is pretty short as well. I see that there are namespaces that are default. I see Contoso University added as a namespace, so I don't have to keep adding this namespace inside multiple views, which is good. And then rest all appears fairly standard to MVC. Alright, so I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to scroll down. Let's see what we have inside the web.config. Right, so nothing fancy here as well. The only thing that we updated so far is the connection string, that is local TBContext express, and then nothing bothering here as well. Alright, so I'm going to close out this and I am going to open a code file for the first time. Alright, so one question that I generally ask people is to what is the entry point of an MVC application? I get different answers. The correct answer according to me is a controller. The way MVC is designed is that there's IIS that is sitting at the entry point of the on the application server. It has exposed a port, it has exposed a URL. When that URL is hit, the HTTP handlers and the HTTP modules that are defined for MVC inside IIS, they run some magic. They try to extract out things from the URL, and then if okay, so let me take you to the route config here. Alright, so this is the URL structure that we have defined. Alright, so this is fairly standard. There's a controller, there's an action, there's an ID. If you do not specify any of this, the controller is going to take the name of home, the action is going to take the name of index, and the ID parameter is going to be optional and it's going to be left empty and blank. So by default, the home controller is going to get launched. But then the browser syntax is going to look the server name slash something. Alright, so the HTTP modules that are defined for MVC that are linked inside the IIS control, they are going to extract out the names, and then based on the name they are going to create the object of the controller, and those objects are then going to get called, the function that is going to get called inside those controller objects is the action. Alright, so on loading the website for the first time, the home controller object is going to get created and the index action will be executed. Index action does not display any business logic, so it is, I'm assuming that it's going to a hard-coded view. If I right click and if I select go to view, going forward I'm going to switch to more on the keyboard side. I'm a keyboard person. I might hit Control M, Control G, so you're not going to see a lot of things that I'm telling you right now. But then let's go to the view of the home index action. Alright, so this is fairly standard page. The page title is inside the view bag property. I'm not a very big fan of view bags and view data. Anything that is type anything that is dynamically typed, I generally do not prefer to use it inside my application. I think that we should have more of models, and then through those models we should be deriving these things. Fairly standard practice, view_back.title, set the homepage name, and then use this name somewhere inside of the view. Right, so it's saying welcome to Contoso University, some little description here. Inside column D4, this appears to be a responsive website. This is a Jumbotron. I'm assuming that this is going to display a very big div at the beginning of the application. A description of the site and built it from scratch. These are default MVC insertions that happen when you select the default MVC template. Alright, so this page is not very interesting. Everything is very default here. So I'm going to close out of this. This action is not doing much. Alright, okay. Let's go to the about action. Right. First thing that I want to notice is that a few lines, like good 8-9 lines, are commented here. Right. I am not a big fan of comments. If I am looking at such code, I would delete everything that is not relevant. I would put comments in very limited, very specific situations. Rest of my code is very self-expressive. My variable names, they will be very intuitive. I would try to write code that can be read as an English language. Alright, so the comment here says commenting out link to show how to do some things in SQL. Do the same thing in SQL. Alright, alright, so I'm assuming that this is going to have the same effect as this particular SQL statement here. Alright, another thing that I notice right now is that the SQL query here is dynamically created, and it is injected inside this particular database, and the data is generated and the data is returned to the view as a list. Alright, so this is an IEnumerable, which is good. IEnumerables should be accepted and sent to all the views. That ensures that nobody is tampering with our data through fancy .NET code. A very good practice to written IEnumerables. Alright, so this database SQL query is going to accept a query, and then this query will be so there is a hard coding that I see. It is going to select enrollment date, and it's going to display account start as student count. It is going to come from a table called person, and then it will have a discriminator of student, and then it will be grouped by the enrollment date. So the kind of data that we're going to see is on what date how many students were enrolled, which is probably a good page, a good statistics for people who are coming to the university website and they want to see the rate at which students are enrolling into the university. So fairly important statistics from marketing and customer insights perspective. What I did not like is that this query is getting generated dynamically. What I did not like is this DB object here. Let's jump to the definition of this student DB. Alright, what we see here is the school context. DB is a newed up instance of the school context. If you guys are familiar with entity framework, this class is definitely getting derived from the TBContext class. Let's jump to the definition of this. I'm hitting the F12 key on my keyboard. We're going to do more of this. As I said, that the school context is getting inherited from TBContext, and it has multiple DB sets inside it, right? One for courses, one for departments, one for enrollment, instructors, so on and so forth. There is an on model creating. Inside this one, I'm assuming that there is some relationship being defined between map right key, the instructor ID. There's a courses, so a course can have multiple instructors, and then these 5 lines here, model builder, all the way up to table course instructor, is suggesting that the course and the instructor is going to have a one-to-many relationship. Another line, entity department, Map to stored procedure. I don't know what this function does at the moment. So I'm going to go to the definition and I'm going to read through the documentation. Summary configures this type to use stored procedures for insert, update, delete. The default convention for procedure and parameter name will be used. Alright, so I'm assuming that this line here is not doing much. It is simply suggesting to use the default configuration for this particular database. So these are some of the examples that I'm assuming. Alright, and that is configuring, that is telling the entity framework as to what way a model should be created. One thing that I would want to highlight at this point, if you were reading through the documentation clearly, this is a code first approach, and inside code first somebody has created these models first, these 7 class files, which are also called plain old these are Poco classes, plain old C# objects, I'm assuming, and they are not going to have any of the business logic inside it. They're going to have member fields like this. I like how the virtual keyword is used here. I like how they are using the I collection. I am not a big fan of data annotations for applying validation, so at some point we're going to get rid of this as well. But yeah, most of these classes, all of these classes, they're going to look like this. Let's go inside the person class as well, and let's see what we have here. The same thing. ID in entity framework becomes the default primary key, an integer ID field. So I'm assuming that it's going to become the primary key, which is also a default convention. If I scroll down, I see last name, I see first name, I see full name. I am sure that I have seen more columns for this one in the other queries, which was category. If you remember the query on the home page, so the discriminator is student, and this does not have a column, but then I'm assuming that at some point this column is going to get generated because of the way student class has been defined as an inheritance from person. Alright, with this I think I am done looking at the model, and I'm going to jump back into the home controller. Alright, so the home controller is creating a query. We are going to change this. It is sending this query to the entity framework SDK, and then it is the entity framework library, and then entity framework is getting us the data. Data is converted to list and being returned to the view. Alright, let's right click and go to the view. Alright, the view itself is very standard. It is defined pretty short code, 30 lines, a table with tr defining the head, enrollment date, and student, and then it is running a for loop on the model. The model itself is an IEnumerable, which is a good thing, and enrollment date group. Right. So this was the data structure that was also present inside the view model. All right, which is a good thing. I like looking at such data, which is created very specifically for a particular view. All right, this makes me ask a question. That's something that I might have overlooked. The about page knows too much about conversion of the data that is coming from the SQL query, and then it knows how to exactly populate the enrollment query data. So I see a lot of overlap between what the controller action is supposed to do to extract the data and return the data. To explain the idea better, the data that we are extracting is a concern of the model class. The MVC design pattern itself is very defining into what each layer can do. The model, people assume that model is only defining these particular member classes, right, which are going to have fields that correspond to columns in the database. All right, this is not true. The functionality of a model inside MVC is that it is going to extract the data out for you, right? It is not the functionality of the controller to know how to extract the data. So this query should not be part of the action inside the controller. This should be delegated at some point to the model class, and then that model class should get us the data in the format of these model classes. And then the functionality of the controller action is to massage the data that is coming from the model into the view model and then send that view model to the view. Alright, so I see a lot of violation of design principles, of MVC principles. This class is definitely violating the solid principles, the single responsibility, the open close principle, uh, and things of that type. We are going to fix that. Uh, with that said, the word that I used has made me think of another thing that is missing from this project, and that is test cases. All right. Anytime you start with the activity of refactoring, you just don't jump into the code and then you start modifying these lines of code. You know what? Oh, I did not like this. This should be coming from the model, so I'm going to come here and delete this. Right? We do not touch the code that is not testable. All right, which is an extremely important point of your application. All right, so I'm going to close out of this one, and then I'm going to start with my first refactoring assignment, which is adding a test project. All right, so I'm going to right click the solution. I'm going to hit right click new project. I'm going to come select a template that is for testing. All right, you see that it's a lot of browsing. I'm going to come here and type unit test, and then I can select any of these. Let's go with XUnit. I haven't done XUnit in a while. This will be a good starting point. I've done some NUnit, but then I see a lot of .NET Core here. I don't want .NET Core. I want .NET Framework. Alright, the only option that I'm getting for .NET Framework is the unit test project. If I want to do XUnit project for .NET Framework, I am sure I might have to install something something more to my project. All right, so what we are going to test is Contoso University dot tests. All right, before I hit the create button, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to think about the application. All right, I am not a very big fan of the folder structure that we are seeing behind. Ultimately, I would want to transition to a folder structure which is more related to the onion architecture. Right. So with that, I am going to take the liberty of creating new folder structure. All right. Let me go ahead and create the folder structure for you. All right. I'm going to call it specifications. All right. So specifications are requirements that are defined about the application. I'm going to go ahead and create a few other folders as well. Contoso University dot presentation. All right. With this, I am going to go ahead and move this particular folder inside the presentations folder, and I'm going to rename this Contoso University project to Contoso University dot presentation dot web dot presentation dot web dot MVC. Alright, so this is a good name that I liked, but then with this I should also be trying to rename a lot of files inside my project. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit F2, I'm going to copy this and escape, right click, properties, and inside this window I'm going to say that the assembly name itself is not going to be Contoso University going forward. It's going to be Contoso University.presentation.web.mvc. Alright, there are a lot of benefits of the correct naming structure, the correct folder structure inside your application. Also, I am going to bump up the Alright, let me not touch the .NET Framework behavior at the moment. I'm going to leave it as it is. Going forward, when we include other things like Unity dependency injection and things like that, we will be at a point where we will have to bump this up to accommodate some of the functionality requested by those frameworks. I'm going to leave this thing as is. I'm going to save, I'm going to close out of this, I'm going to close all the windows, I'm going to fire up exactly one folder. Alright, I'm going to select namespace Contoso University, and I'm going to hit Control H on my machine, which is going to fire up this find a place window. And I'm going to type namespace Contoso University.presentation.web.mvc. I'm going to say match whole word. I'm going to select match whole case, and I'm going to select the entire solution, and I'm going to hit replace all. Alright, this is a very aggressive action that I'm taking on the application, but then I want namespaces inside my application correct. Alright, so with this I see that there are 39 occurrences that were replaced, but then because we changed the namespace to this, I am sure that there's one more statement that we will have to modify. You want to guess which one? Is a using statement. So I'm going to come here and change the namespace from namespace Contoso University to, alright, I have used a short key that I should have not. Alright, I'm going to scroll all the way to the left, and I'm going to select, I'm going to change this as a using statement. Again, one more time, I'm going to, let me make sure that there's no dot at the end, because there's no dot here. Let me put, yeah, I'm going to leave this thing as is, and, oh, hell. I'm going to hit Control D, I'm going to hit Control D here as well. And hit paste. Alright, and now I'm gonna hit the find replace button one more time. Another difficult, very difficult action. 19 occurrences were replaced. I'm gonna hit Control Shift P, hoping that nothing has crashed, everything builds fine. And the build has succeeded, which is a good sign. I'm going to hit Control F5, and instead of debugging the application, I'm going to run the application. And Control F5 for some reason is okay. Alright. And then it is saying that multiple types were found matching the controller name home. This can happen if the route service is requested for this. Does not specify namespace search to controller match request. If this is the case, register this route by calling an overlap map route. Alright, why is it saying that? So I am assuming that moving around these files has kind of upset the MVC framework. I'm going to see what we have here. It is the Contoso University.presentation.web.mvc.controller. This looks okay to me. I'm going to hit Control Shift P one more time. One thing that I do not like is how IIS launches the browser window all the time. Alright, so here's a setting that I generally do. I come to the project, I go to properties, I have pressed Alt Enter. I'm going to do more of that in the future. Inside the application, inside the web, I am going to say this, that I don't want it to launch IIS Express anymore. I override application URL. Yeah, I don't like this URL. Let's just change that to something more developer, which is 8090. I don't want the current page to start. I want to not launch the browser window for me. Do not open a page. Wait for a request from the external application. I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to right click, I'm going to build. I have not fixed the issue of the home controller error that we were seeing. I am just doing a little housekeeping here. So I'm going to change this to 8090. I'm going to hit enter, and go back to this. I'm going to go back to the browser window. I will still have to clean solution and then build solution. Alright, this is still saying Microsoft Edge. It should have not. This could be coming from, for some reason my settings have not taken effect. 8090. See. Alright, so for this thing to work, I think I require the IIS services enabled on my computer. Alright, so I'm going to ignore all of that for now. I'm going to leave this as is. I'm going to hit the save button. I'm going to hit IIS Express, and let's see what happens. Alright, so we still have that error. I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to stop debugging, and inside the home controller,